Picture a coastline the morning after a major earthquake. A 7.5 magnitude quake has just flattened the region's main port. Every crane in the harbor is in the water, dock sections are rubble, and hundreds of thousands of people have lost reliable access to clean water, while the one piece of infrastructure that could bring aid in by sea, the port itself, no longer exists. This is one of the hardest problems in disaster response, and it's a problem the United States Navy has spent decades preparing to solve by doing something most people have never seen: building a fully functioning port on an empty beach in under a week from the sea. This is Directive 1, and we're going to walk through exactly how that capability works. Every system, every number, every stage, the operation the Navy would run when a coastline loses its port. Here's what most people don't expect. None of this is improvised. Every piece of equipment you're about to see was designed for amphibious assault, landing a fighting force on a hostile beach with no port. What the Navy figured out is that the same engineering that gets tanks ashore in a war gets water trucks ashore in a disaster. The capability transferred almost perfectly. The operation starts before a single craft hits the water. Satellite imagery and reconnaissance flights map the seafloor gradient off the target beach. The Navy needs to know where the bottom goes from deep to shallow, where reefs sit, where soft sand gives way to rock. A beach that looks usable from the air can be a trap. An LCAC hovercraft riding an inch of air cushion can still ground on a submerged ridge if the approach isn't plotted correctly. Hydrographic teams process the data and produce an approach corridor, a lane roughly 100 meters wide cleared for transit. At the center of it is the Wasp-class amphibious assault ship, a floating military base. At 844 feet long, about 2.5 New York City blocks, it carries aircraft, vehicles, fuel, food, medical equipment, and the craft that will move all of it to shore. Its well deck, a floatable hangar at the waterline, holds the landing craft. When the ship ballasts down by pumping seawater into its lower compartments, the stern gate drops, the well deck floods, and the craft inside float free. The workhorse here is the LCAC, landing craft air cushion. It looks like a flat barge riding a skirt of pressurized air, and that description undersells what it does. The LCAC skims over the water surface on a cushion maintained by 4 gas turbine engines producing around 16,000 horsepower combined. It reaches 40 knots, faster than most recreational speedboats, and because it rides on air rather than hull, it can cross almost any surface: open water, surf, wet sand, dry sand, and shallow reef that would stop a conventional landing craft cold. Each LCAC carries up to 60 tons of cargo. That's roughly the weight of 40 mid-sized cars delivered at speed across terrain no ship can touch. Think about the logistics for a second. You have a coastline with no port, no cranes, no hardstand, no fuel. The LCAC doesn't need any of that. It rides onto the beach, drops its ramp, and a 60-ton payload drives off under its own power. But 60 tons per run, even at 40 knots, has limits. The Navy needs throughput, the ability to move thousands of tons of aid continuously. That's where the floating pier comes in. CB construction battalions, the Navy's engineering units, whose name comes from the initial CB, construction battalion, can begin assembling a modular causeway system within hours of arrival. The system uses prefabricated steel pontoon sections, each 24 meters long, that bolt together end to end. Think of it as a highway built from precast segments, except the segments float and the highway extends from a barge offshore to the beach itself. Each pontoon section weighs roughly 90 tons but can be handled by standard shipboard cranes. Here's where it gets hardest. The sections have to be floated into position and connected while the sea is moving them. Each connection point uses a pin and socket joint with 6 inches of tolerance, enough to absorb wave action without the sections tearing apart, but tight enough to carry a loaded truck. CBs work from small utility boats, guiding sections into alignment, driving pins, and checking each joint before the next section goes in. In calm conditions, a 120-meter pier section can be assembled in about 18 hours. A full causeway system from offshore barge to beach typically spans 300 to 500 meters and takes around 96 hours to complete. One thing that stands out about this capability: the most durable infrastructure innovations rarely come from peacetime construction. They come from the need to move armies across water under fire. The floating pier, the air-cushioned landing craft, the modular causeway, all of it was developed for assault operations. Disaster response inherited the entire toolkit. Once the causeway is up, throughput changes dramatically. Instead of individual LSAC runs, one craft, one payload, one beach landing at a time, trucks can drive directly from a barge offshore along the floating causeway onto the beach and into the distribution network. The rate of cargo transfer goes from dozens of tons per hour to hundreds. Water is the critical commodity in the first 96 hours after a major earthquake. Survivors can go 3 weeks without food. Without clean water, serious dehydration sets in within 3 days. Ships in a task force like this carry reverse osmosis desalination units capable of producing around 300,000 gallons of drinking water per day combined, enough for roughly 150,000 people at emergency rationing levels. Reverse osmosis works by forcing seawater through membranes with pores so fine that salt molecules cannot pass. The pressure required is enormous, typically between 800 and 1,000 pounds per square inch, about 60 times atmospheric pressure. The result is water pure enough to drink, pumped from the ship through an inflatable pipeline that runs along the seafloor and surfaces at the beach, where it connects to storage bladders. Those bladders hold up to 50,000 gallons each and serve as the distribution point for tanker trucks. Is this as fast as a working municipal waterworks? No, but in this scenario, the municipal waterworks just collapsed. The question isn't what's ideal, it's what can be done with what's there, right now. Helicopters run in parallel. The assault ship and its task force carry a mix of CH-53 heavy-lift helicopters, capable of carrying about 16 tons of external cargo, and lighter MH-60 variants for personnel and medical evacuation. Helicopter operations let the force reach communities that even the beach landing zone can't serve: villages at altitude, roads blocked by landslide, areas where the coastal approach is impassable. The ships carry aviation fuel to sustain continuous flight operations. A single CH-53 burns roughly 2,500 pounds of fuel per hour, and the force plans for days of sustained tempo. The most surprising thing in the actual operational planning for this kind of mission: how much of it is traffic management? The beach landing zone handles LSAC arrivals, causeway truck traffic, helicopter pad operations, medical evacuation staging, and water distribution all at once. Getting those flows to not interfere with each other is as much a logistics challenge as any of the engineering. The Navy assigns beach party teams, specialists trained specifically to manage landing zone traffic, whose entire job is keeping cargo moving through the zone without bottleneck. And the numbers a task force like this can put up add up fast. In the first week of an operation on this scale, the Navy plans to move more than 2,000 tons of aid ashore, pump over 1 million gallons of clean water, and sustain a force of several hundred sailors and Marines, a functional logistics node built on a beach that had nothing a week before. That's the capability almost nobody outside the military knows exists: the ability to project not just force but infrastructure onto any coastline on Earth without needing a harbor. Every Wasp-class ship can do it, every Seabee battalion trains for it, and every time a disaster hits a coast and the ports go down, this same process comes off the shelf. Which mega-build should Directive 1 take apart next? Tell us in the comments, and let us know where in the world you're watching from.